Hello folks, I'm John Myrie and welcome to the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. On this week's show we have reports and tips for you from Jarrett McCarthy down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, and then we talk musky fishing with Hayward Area Fishing Guide Pete Rich. Lots to cover on this week's show, all coming up right after these messages.
The fishing opener has come and gone. If you fished it from an old, inadequate boat, were stuck on shore, or worse yet, didn't go out at all, we can help. Hayward Power Sports has an awesome selection of new Lund boats, rigged and ready. You'll find the 1650 Angler, the 1775 Impact, the 1875 Crossover, and many more. We're offering massive Hayward Power Sports discounts up to $7,500, plus we'll throw in a free storage for next winter. Come see us at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Riding along in my automobile.
Bumping into things unexpectedly? Make your first choice for collision repair. Ernie's Auto Body, featuring the most advanced collision repair facility in northwest Wisconsin. With a state-of-the-art spray, bake down, draft paint booth for that better-than-new finish, laser technology for precision frame alignment, loaner cars available, computerized estimates, written guarantees, and documented unmatched customer service, the clear choice is Ernie's Auto Body, south of Hayward on Highway 63 and Nursery Road, where quality is no accident.
Big fish stories come to life at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. The world's largest shrine to freshwater anglers boasts a 4.5-story tall walk-through musky that's a half a city block long. It's like taking a peek into Granddad's old tackle box with thousands of mounted fish, antique outboard motors, and historical sport fishing artifacts. Stop in and take a chance on our 50-50 cash raffle. You could walk away with a pile of cash. See the big ones that didn't get away at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, Highways 27 and B in Hayward. Open daily, including Sundays, through October 31st at 9:30 a.m. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering welcomes you to stop by for their great lunch menu. And while you're there, Lynn's also has a great selection of custom-cut meats and sausages, as well as many varieties of snack sticks, jerky, fresh cheese curds, and much more. Lynn's is open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5:30 and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering in Hayward.
Today, anglers fish longer. Today, anglers fish harder. Today, anglers rely more than ever on their electronics. It all comes down to catching more fish, and today, anglers rely on Amped Outdoors lithium batteries, period. Visit ampedoutdoors.com today to power your outdoor experience.
We're recording this week's show down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, talking to Jarrett McCarthy. It's a busy day today here.
Absolutely. Monday usually brings people in. Got, a whole bunch of people that are getting ready to go out fishing. Just coming up north. Got, a whole bunch of people that have been here for a while. They're come back in restocking. So, yeah, definitely a day to get things in order.
Been a lot of people out on the lakes, a lot of people water recreating too, and just out there enjoying the hot weather.
Which is nice to see, whether we have hot weather, cool weather, just seeing people out on the lake enjoying our awesome natural resources that we have in here in Wisconsin. It's always good to see.
Let's talk about fishing. Muskies. One, have you heard much as far as the muskies?
Like I said, the reports have gone down for muskies. We still got guys that are out there fishing muskies. Seems like a lot of the muskies that people are seeing, they're coming out of deeper, cooler water right now, which is to be expected with some of the water temps, approaching those high 70s, low 80s in some spots. But yeah, there are guys catching them out there still.
You bet. And walleyes, anything going there?
Yes and no for walleyes. We're in that time of the summer where they're out deep, they're kind of scattered, a lot of onesies, twosies out there. It's a lot different from the weed line bite early in the summer, although there are still a few fish that are up on the weeds or what have you. But a lot of guys are in search mode right now until they find a pod of them, and then you can kind of slow down and slip over them or find any other technique for them.
Trolling is a good summer tactic. Trolling crawler harnesses, trolling crankbaits. It's a tactic that you can learn. Just go on the internet and look up. You find a lot of good information, but it's a way of catching those fish that are out there kind of scattered and suspended.
It's a good way of catching them that are scattered, and it's a good way of finding them when they're scattered. So you cover a lot of water when you're trolling. That's key in the summertime.
You bet. How about panfish out there, crappies? The crappies, I've been seeing kind of a little bit of a strange bite. I mean, you find a pod of them that'll bite, and the next pod just doesn't seem to want anything.
We're hearing the same thing. We're hearing some crappies that are over deep weeds. We're seeing some crappies out eating insect hatches over the basins or whatever. We get people that come and say, hey, got a pot of crappies that had lockjaw out there, and then go on to a different pot of crappies, and they catch a handful of out of them, half a dozen or so. But it seems like the bite window is very, very short for these fish lately. A lot of guys have been doing okay, but a lot of fish out there to be caught yet.
How about bait for crappies? I know you use a lot of plastics. I use plastics. I use gulp. Should a person be changing colors, changing bait styles?
Absolutely. As we said before, start big when you're out there. You're using 1.5 inch 2-inch plastics, and those will often select for some of the bigger fish in the school and some of the more aggressive fish. There's so many different color patterns and different presentations out there as far as size of baits, so you should be rotating through and kind of match the hatch or find out what those fish are keying in on as best as possible. If you have a tried and true bait that you've got that works for you, that's great, but as soon as that bait shuts down, you're going to be sitting out on the water for 7 hours with one bait and you're too stubborn to try something else that could really be working, so it's a good idea to try different baits.
A lot of tactics work too, just the old-fashioned bobber set up or a jig hanging down there, a tube jig, but even drop shot now I find it now works pretty good.
Drop shotting for bluegills, and there's a lot of different baits out there that you can run for those, and they work fantastically. Especially in areas that have a really snaggy bottom and you can't really pull a crawler along the bottom without losing a fortune's worth of jigs. But a lot of different techniques that really work well for panfish out there.
Yeah, the one thing too about the drop shot for people that it's harder for them to tell when they're near the bottom, at least with the drop shot with the weight below the hook. They drop the weight down there and a lot less likely to get snagged than they are, can feel the bottom with that weight right away before the hook gets there.
You can feel the bottom with that weight, and usually your line is fairly taut, so it makes it a lot easier to feel that bite too.
How about northern pike fishing? You hear much there?
Not too much on northern. We're hearing a lot of guys that are catching some nice eater-sized northerns up shallow or what have you. Not hearing a lot on the bigger pike. Those are fish that are definitely out a little bit deeper and kind of scattered along with the walleyes or what have you out deep. But, guys are getting them, just nothing big right now.
How about the bass fishing? Largemouth first.
Largemouth fishing has been pretty good, Still seeing a lot of fish coming up shallow, up in some cover and some wood and some lily pads and some weeds. There's been some fish that have been out a little bit deeper, some deeper weeds out on some humps. Guys are throwing Senkos out there. They're running slip bobbers. They're running drop shots, top waters up shallow. So, a lot of good options for largemouth out there.
How about the smallies?
Smallies, same deal, we found a couple of pods of smallies out deep the other day, up on a hump, on a rock hump. Seems like there was a whole bunch of them up there. So fishing has been really good for smallies. Been hearing it on a bunch of different lakes. Guys are running Ned rigs, run some other kind of plastics. But, fishing's been good.
You guys got just about everything in the shop here. We're here, I mentioned earlier, busy. We got a lot of families in here, kids, and a lot of background noise today.
Which is good because those kids are the future of this resource that we have in Wisconsin here, so it's good to get them into it early.
You bet. That's what I've been doing a lot lately, fishing with families and kids too. Anyway, you guys got just about everything they would need for just about any kind of fishing in here.
Absolutely. Whether you're looking to catch a couple little bluegills or a couple big muskies, we're here for you. We got it all.
Well, thanks a lot, Jarrett, for taking the time with us here.
Thanks for having me again, John.
Well, folks, we need to take a break right now and hear from some of the fine sponsors that make this show possible every week. When we come back, we'll be talking musky fishing with Hayward Area Fishing Guide Pete Rich. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop for the Hayward area's largest selection of rods, reels, lures, fishing electronics, boating supplies, and they've now expanded their selection of soft plastic bass and walleye baits. No matter what you're fishing for, at Hayward Bait and Bottle you'll find everything you'll need for a successful season, and while you're there, in their bottle shop you'll find a full selection of beer, wine, and liquor too. And also don't forget, now they carry Shoremaster docks, lifts, and accessories at Hayward Bait and Bottle.
The Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau in Sawyer County, Wisconsin welcomes you to our Northwoods hometown. No matter the season, no matter the activity, you'll always be surrounded by our great outdoors. What more could you ask for in a vacation destination? Woods, waters, world-class events. Contact us for information on lodging, dining, attractions, events, trail conditions, and more. Order your free vacation guide and start planning your getaway today. Visit us at haywardlakes.com or call 1-800-724-2992.
Get out of your chair and into fresh air with a new Can-Am side-by-side or ATV from Hayward Power Sports. Hurry in for a very limited number of select 2023 side-by-sides that offer up to $3,500 in rebates, plus financing as low as 1.99% for 36 months. Meanwhile, our selection of 2024s is huge and offer rebates up to $1,000 and again, 1.99% financing for 36 months. If you enjoy the creature comforts, test drive an incredibly popular Can-Am Defender HD10 side-by-side. It comes standard with a full cab including heat and air conditioning. Looking for a value-priced machine? The Can-Am Defender XT HD7 features a winch, roof, front bumper, and full skid plate. With the $1,000 rebate, your price is just $15,399. Your new Can-Am side-by-side or ATV is waiting for you at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Certain restrictions apply, subject to credit approval. See your dealer for details. Always wear a helmet, never drink and ride.
Welcome back to another segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors, and this part of the show is brought to you by the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. For more information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out their website at haywardlakes.com. Well, folks, we have a lot of different guides up here in the Hayward area, and some of them concentrate on muskies more than others. One of those guys is Pete Rich. I had a chance to talk to Pete the other night on the phone about muskie fishing with some great tips. Pete, been a while since I had you on the show. Good to have you on here.
Yeah. Thanks for reaching out. I appreciate it.
What kind of tips can you give people that are up here want to catch a muskie as far as lures, presentation, location, that stuff?
Yeah. So, for us, it has been top waters and blades. I think the most unique thing about this year compared to some other years is I think every single fish we've had eat blades has been in the figure eight, or I think we had one eat about 3 feet from the boat as our farthest hit out. So it has been a figure eight thing. And if you kind of make sure you're maintaining good figure eight discipline, they're coming up and eating them eventually.
I see a lot of people make major mistakes when it comes to figure eight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Obviously with, both of us guiding, we see a lot of different fishing abilities. And, one question I get a lot, and I'm sure you get it all, is, hey, do I need to figure eight on every cast? Yeah, absolutely. Because typically the ones you don't see are the ones that fire up and eat it. And that's where, just like you were saying, maintaining as big of a turn as you can get. Like I have all 9.6 rods, 9.4 rods, and that helps a ton. But even if you are still, even if you have an 8.6 rod, you got to do your best to really extend those turns. That allows, the big fish to stay on it. A smaller turn, you might keep a 36 on it, but you got to always imagine that fish of a lifetime is under the bait that you can't see, and you want to figure eight like there's a 4-footer or bigger, under that lure. And the key to that is turns and then maintaining speed. One thing I see a lot of newer fishermen do is kind of slow down as they come into the figure eight to make sure they do a good figure eight. The key to a good figure eight, for me anyhow, is keeping those big turns, but I always increase the speed a little bit. One thing I tell my clients in the boat is, in the history of muskies eating bluegill, a bluegill has never slowed down to get eaten. So by increasing that speed and making those turns, you're taking that lure away from the fish. You'll see it a lot with topwaters too. If you increase that speed and that fish comes with it when you increase the speed, that fish typically is going to bite. If you increase the speed and you create a gap between you and the fish and he doesn't close down that gap, that's probably a fish that's not going to end up hitting. But so you can kind of get a really good read on the fish's aggressiveness and body posture just by paying attention when you increase that speed of how that fish reacts.
Well, once you get that fish to the boat, the figure eight, most of the time you can actually see when that fish is starting to get aggressive. Because one thing I look for is I'll see the white around his mouth when he's starting to open his mouth up. He's chasing that bait.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a big part, is reading the posture of the fish. And even if you get that, like we've had times where that fish is super aggressive and it's like, gosh, how didn't he eat it? I think that's a fish you can go back on in a short amount of time and get to go. If you have a really nice fish that he goes around the 8 but he never really gets aggressive on it, that's a fish I might wait until a moon major or maybe much later in the day when you get a light change to go back on. If that fish is aggressive, I might just fish the spot like I never saw him and go back on him, or maybe go hit one other spot and then come back on him because that fish showed a lot of interest in wanting to bite, and for whatever reason, it just didn't.
Top water baits, bucktails, whatever, figure eights become increasingly, they're important all the time, because even in clear water where you can see a fish coming, you might have a fish come from under the boat that you don't see. But if you're in darker water or darker light conditions, it's really important, because if you can't see the fish can't see you, and that just increases the likelihood that they're going to bite at the side of the boat.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of times I'm on the Chippewa flowage. I definitely more stained bodies of water than I do the real clear bodies of water, and I do think that having that light cover and the stained water, I've noticed I get a lot more figure eight bites on those darker bodies of water. I think they're just a little less boat shy. I think they're a little easier to fool, because like you said, there's just less light penetration, and the fish is a little more camouflaged, I guess, in a sense.
You bet. Well, we're talking, there's a lot of ways to go after them. I mean, as we get later here and the fish will move a little deeper, we can troll. And trolling's fairly new to a lot of people up here, because we couldn't troll. What's a couple of the major mistakes you see people make when it comes to trying to troll for muskies?
They're too deep. And I remember when, trolling really first opened up on the flowage, and, I was very successful at it. But that was also because I put a ton of time in to doing it. Like when I wasn't guiding, I was out trolling with buddies, or sometimes trolling by myself just to try to figure it out. That first year trolling was legal on the flowage, I think I put over 600 hours on my kicker motor. And what I would get a lot of emails, especially because, matlocks and headlocks, those more expensive baits, people are losing them. And guys were emailing me like, man, how many headlocks have you lost this year? I was like, none. And they're like, oh, I snagged a stump in 20 foot of water. And it's like, well, you were probably under the fish, just like we were talking in the figure eight, those more aggressive fish kind of tend to be just under the bait, and because their eyes are on top of their head and they're going to stalk prey from underneath. And it's the same with trolling. So I don't, on the lakes that I troll specifically, like the flowage, for example, doesn't really develop a thermocline in most areas. So most of those fish aren't, 20 feet down in 20 feet of water. Most of those fish, I kind of find that sweet spot to be in that 10 to 8 foot range, even if I'm in 25 feet of water, because, I feel like if I'm above the fish, he's still going to find it if he's aggressive. If I'm below the fish, that fish probably isn't going to find it, or really need to key in on it, because he's under his prey. So if I'm under him, I don't think that lure is very effective at that. So I kind of find that 8 to 10 foot range to be my sweet spot. And another part of it is speed. I think most people just troll at one speed, and I can't speak for everyone, but I think they're usually around that like 3.5 mile an hour range, where I like to push it during the summer. I like to push that speed up closer to 4, even on stained water. Now, if I'm night trolling, I'll slow way down, and I'll bring the lures up. So if I'm out at night, I'll troll more at speeds like I do in November. I'm going to be more around 2.8 to 3.2. Kind of 3 seems to be that kind of sweet spot there. And I'm going to bring those lures maybe up in the top 4 or 5 feet of the water column, where during the day I'm down in that, like I said, that 8 to 10 foot range, going at a much quicker speed. One other thing is, it doesn't matter how deep a point is. If I'm on a different lake that might have a point that runs out into 40 feet of water in the basin, where it transitions from that gravel or rock into mud, even if I'm only 8 to 10 feet down, I still want to run my boat out off the tip of that point. Even though it feels like I'm way above the structure, that is really where it seems like those fish relate to bottom composition change, and that hard to soft bottom, no matter how deep the bottom is.
Well, folks, we need to take you out another break and hear from even more of the fine sponsors that make this show possible every week. When we come back, we'll have the second part of that talk we had with fishing guide Pete Rich. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hey folks, come on over to Hayward Ace Hardware and check out the area's largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories. We carry top brands like Browning and Sig Sauer, and we have a great selection of the newest and hard-to-find models. We've got a large selection of ammo with more coming in daily. If you need a scope, we carry great brands like Leupold, Hawk, and EOTech, and we'll even mount it and bore-sight it for you too. We even sell suppressors and silencers. And don't forget to check out our Guns of the Week. Huge discounts on a variety of pistols, rifles, and shotguns that change every week. So stop on in to Hayward Ace Hardware, your firearms superstore. Hayward Ace Hardware, Highway 63 North in Hayward, or give us a call at 715-634-8700.
Hayward Animal Hospital is a full-service medical and surgical hospital featuring on-site laboratory, digital and dental x-ray, in-house pharmacy, and online store. Dr. Ostrander has 40 years of experience dealing with illnesses, injuries, surgery, and dentistry. Hayward Animal Hospital offers urgent care appointments and emergency surgery daily. Please call early in the day for these appointments. They open at 8 a.m. Hayward Animal Hospital is located 1 mile east of Hayward on Highway B. Call 715-634-8971.
Hey folks, the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach on Highway K between the Big Lakes has groceries, ice, beer, liquor, and pop, and now has all new tackle and bait supplies. All current antiques and household items are now on sale and all must go to make room for the sport shop. That's at the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach between the Big Lakes.
If you'd like to have your time fishing be more enjoyable and productive, hiring a fishing guide can be a good investment. Whether it's learning more about fish patterns throughout the year, learning how to use your depth finder to find the best spots and fish, learn how to use that GPS to get the most out of it, or learn better boat control. A day on the water with a guide can really help you to be a better angler, as well as make a day on the lake very enjoyable. To book a guide trip this year or get more information, you can find us on the internet at www.wiscnorthlandoutdoors.com and then just click on Area Guides.
Welcome back to the last segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And folks, we're going to jump right back into the second part of that talk we had with fishing guide Pete Rich. Well, you know, and you talked about when we first started trolling, and that we've seen that on other lakes up here too, where it was super effective at first. And, you know, I can go back to where fishing some lakes up here where I was fishing over structure in the middle of the lake, and it was like a field day. We were catching muskies like crazy. But as we fished it and more people fished it, these fish learn. These fish, people don't realize it, but the fish can get conditioned and they avoid things. And I think they're harder to catch now trolling than they were to start with in some of the lakes that they couldn't troll on them before. So it becomes real important that you pay attention to details and all the little things, because they'll still bite, but you know, you got to do stuff a little different sometimes.
Oh, 100%. Like when we were first trolling, it just seemed like you drug a lure over a spot with a fish on it and you hit. And I think a big part of that too was with COVID. When that hit, with Canada being closed, we had a lot more fishermen here and some good fishermen who would spend a lot of their time in Canada using the same techniques. And so I think for like that 2020 summer, that 2021 summer, these fish got pounded during the summer trolling, and it absolutely has changed. It's still very effective, but they have definitely not been jumping at, like, you know, that first lure through, so to speak, when they're that aggressive. And so then what we've started doing and has increased our success is, as I've understood this deep structure and how fish relate to it, I might start the day trolling and be like, all right, there's fish holding off the edge of this, you know, say rock hump in 20 feet of water, but we trolled through and they didn't eat. Well, now let's go back with, you know, bulldogs or tubes or weighted spinner baits, you know, something that can get to those depths that I want to troll at, but now cast at them in the sense of, great part about trolling is how much water you can cover. The tough part about trolling is it's tougher to trigger a strike. So when you're ripping a bulldog or bouncing a tube or you know, slow rolling a spinner bait, you have more triggering qualities than you do, say, when you're trolling, because you can manipulate that bait easier casting. And we found over the last couple of years that I'm still catching fish on those locations that I was trolling, but we're getting them to bite a little more consistently casting those areas as well.
Well, I know, Pete, as we get into summer here too, we're talking muskies. I've got to throw in there water temperatures. I'm a firm believer once we get to around 75 degrees and up to 80, 80, basically, I don't think you want to be putting a fish. If you got that kind of water temperatures or even over 80, go bass fishing or something. But 75 to 80, I'm starting to believe now that we don't even need to bring them in the boat. We release them to the side of the boat if we can.
Yeah, I have a hard stopping point at 80 degrees. I always feel like as guides, most people recognize our boats, and we kind of have to set the trend. And so, I have a hard stopping point at 80. I usually actually cut that at about 78. And for those reasons, and that's another reason when we do get those warmer temperatures that I don't troll deep, I don't want to bring, you might see a school of Cisco's or a school of perch down 20 feet right above the thermocline. And it is so tempting to run a bait down there. But I had a biologist explain it to me in the sense of, a musky can handle 80 degree water if he's in 80 degree water. A musky can't handle 80 degree water if he's been living in 72 degree water, because that temperature change, they're cold blooded, they can't regulate their body temperature. The air in their air bladder is much cooler. So you bring them up into warm conditions, and a fish that's otherwise healthy and handled being caught spends too much time up in that warm water, and the change in their body temperature is going to make that air in their bladder expand, and then they just can't regulate it. You can burp air out of their belly, and that's just air that they've had from digesting food. Their air bladder is done through the blood, so there's no just clearing the air bladder out. So that's very important to also think of what temperature were these fish in to keep them safe. And so there's a lot of responsibility that comes with summertime trolling. And one of them is getting them in and out as quick as possible. And if it's a big fish and you do need to net it, just cut the hooks if they get tangled in it. You always have spare hooks. Just cut the hooks out of the net, get that fish back in and on its way as quick as possible.
Lately we see I've seen a lot on the internet, people trying to blame not enough stocking. They're blaming forward-facing sonar, all kinds of reasons why they're seeming to catch more fish or less fish. Fish are getting educated. I'm sure we're losing some fish out there, but when it comes to that stuff, we can put regulations on walleyes and on panfish and all that stuff, but we're pretty well regulated right now with musky regulations. It's going to come down to a personal angler, what he does as far as trying to ensure that the survivability of the fish, to make sure we've got good musky fishing out there.
Yeah, and I don't think stocking, just from what I see, I don't think stocking is too much of an issue as far as population densities. I haven't seen any lakes where there's been a crash in population, and you see a lot of that in trolling with your side imaging is, and they're here, they're just not hitting. And I think that is fish have been overpressured because more people are willing to slide out into deeper water, forward-facing sonar advancements and side imaging, that anglers just have more information available to them, and fish are being caught at a younger age. I mean, I can't imagine how many times we caught a 47 last week. That fish has probably been caught 4, 5, 6 times in his life, and they're going to change their behavior just like any animal does when they're overpressured or there's a predator warning in the air, like that they're used to negative interactions. So I think, we have to change the ways we fish to stay ahead of their natural reaction to avoid being caught, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah. A lot of good information there, Pete. You want to give out some information if anybody wanting to get out on the chip flow with you fishing?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Facebook at Pete Rich or Pete Rich Guide Service. You can shoot me an email at pete.rich25@gmail.com. But easiest thing is just find my website at peterichguide.com, and all the information you need to get a hold of me is right there.
You bet. Well, thanks a lot, Pete.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, folks, we're about out of time for this week's show. I'd like to remind everyone out there that if you miss a show, go to our website at wnoradio.com. And from there, you can link to our podcast site, and the show is also on Spotify and Google Podcasts every week. And also, if you're looking for information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau website at haywardlakes.com. Thanks for listening, folks. We're out of time, and we'll be back again next week with another interesting show for you.
Listen with me, I'm gonna take you there to our Wisconsin outdoors, our Wisconsin outdoors.
This program has been produced and hosted entirely by Wisconsin Northland Outdoor Communications. Any and all views expressed are not necessarily those of the station.